I watched the video, and that was the longest 8 minutes and 46 seconds of my life.
My God, I never forget the look on Mr. Floyd's face during that time, and it hurt me deeply. As a matter of fact, I cried. I cried for about an hour.
To hear this man saying, "I can't breathe," and I think the most heart pull was when he called out for his mom.
You know, I spent my whole career trying to be the ultimate community police officer, and everything I worked for at that time I felt was gone. And being a black man and having those emotions, maybe it's time to move on, time to do something different. But fortunately, I have good, great family and great friends who encourage me that, hey, Willie, everything you've done was worth it. You're going to do even greater things in the future.
I think since I started this job, people have responded to me differently. I've lost some friends. I've been called an Uncle Tom. I've been called a sellout. I've been told the only reason I'm in this job is because of affirmative action. It's a bit hurtful because some of the people before I got to this job knew me over 27 years, and things about me never changed. I'm still the goofy, corny person they've always known. But when I put on this uniform, it's like I became an enemy.
Personally, no one said anything to my face, but I know people are talking behind my back. I don't pay it any attention. You know, my deal is to be focused on what my goals are.
Going through this and dealing with things that are going on, I look at it from a black female perspective. I look at it from a law enforcement perspective, and how I agree with the protest that things have got to change. And I stand with officers that do the right thing. And so that pull is there because ones would say, I'm not being true to, if I could say it this way, and I don't want to sound offensive, but I'm not being true to my race, because if I were, I wouldn't want to work for a system that is killing our black and brown people. And so it's a lot to deal with.
As you can tell, there's unrest in the streets. People are protesting. They want police reform. They want to feel safer in their communities.
The biggest thing that I can see that needs to change in some regards is actual accountability. So I know we talk about that thin blue line and that we're all a brotherhood and we look out for one another, but as if my natural brother were doing something wrong and I saw him, I would call him out on it. And I think that's what we have to do. So I'm the evening sergeant here at the Portland Patrol office. I supervise about 9 people, and I have 5 recruits that I oversee as well. I was working at a credit union, and I met a gentleman by the name of Pat Gallagher, who was a retired detective with the state police. And he came in and told me that he thought I'd be a great officer. I was always wanted to be in a job where I could help. And this provided me that opportunity to do so.
I grew up in Kansas City, Kansas. I went to high school in predominantly African-American neighborhood. When I went to college, my goal was to become a social worker. I found out that social workers didn't make much money, and I had a family at the time, so I had to find a job that really provided for my family. A professor told me about being a police officer, and my first reaction was no. But then I started thinking, hold on, maybe I can be a difference in the communities which I grew up in, where police were not looked upon favorably.
If you go back to the history, when police officers first started, it was to gather up slaves that were running away. This is why there's a big dislike for police officers among people of color, because you're working for the man to bring us to a system now, an institution that was set up basically to house people of color that get longer jail sentences than their counterparts.
It's built in, no doubt about it. It's built in. You're taught early on as a cop, protect yourself. You got to go home at night, which you do, but it's not what this job's about. You can't look at every person out there as a threat.
At 18, my daughter went to Texas to go to school, and so it's kind of like, hey, here's some things you need to be careful of. Here's some things you need to think about. Keep your hands on the steering wheel, tell them where you're reaching for, don't make any sudden movements, and be respectful. And it's sad that people of color have to have those conversations with their children, because I don't believe that other households have to.
I got a call one night from my son. He was just got off work at Nike, and he was running toward the Max train because he was going to miss the last Max back to the west side. And he was ordered on the ground by the police at gunpoint. It tore me apart. I contacted the officers and to find out what went on, and they said there was a robbery in the area and it was matched the description. We've heard that a lot. And my son was one of many, many millions of young men out there, African-American men, who are being stopped by the police for reasons like that. We got to look at people as people and not as sometimes as suspects. You know, maybe you might not get the guy that you're looking for, but yet you let someone keep their dignity.
When I got stopped by a Portland police officer, it's kind of like my words coming back to slap me in my face. The officer was extremely rude, and as I'm going through my wallet to retrieve my license, my badge shows. And he then stops and looks in, and he's like, "Oh, hey, how you doing, buddy? What's going on?" And I was kind of appalled because, like, is that how we treat everyone that we pull over? And I've been told in the past by other law enforcement, when you're working in a certain community, you have to talk to people a certain way, otherwise they don't understand. And like, well, that's not true. If you treat people with the most respect, then that's what they're going to give back to you.
As a police officer, we can't go through life being afraid of our community. We got to be a part of. And you got to take risks sometimes. I think this is the time in this country, as a profession, we got to take some risks, get out of our comfort zone, do some things that are unconventional. And we're going to do that. We're going to do that. It's going to be hard, but we're going to do it.
Different things that we can do differently that would, help the citizens, as well as retrain cops and have a tracking system for certain misconducts that cops do. And you can't just jump from one agency from another and no one ever knows about this misconduct that's supposed to follow you.
I think we're underrepresented in different agencies around here. You look at the numbers of African-American police officers on Portland Police.
We don't have, people of color in law enforcement. How do you expect to make change? How do you expect to see things differently? Someone has to be willing to fight, because until we have some type of police reform, some type of criminal justice reform, and some type of a system that sets up that, we fly the flag that says that it's, freedom and justice for all, but when some are oppressed yet, and that flag doesn't represent those people. And until we're all seen the same, as Martin Luther King said, or all judged the same, or all able to be seen the same, then justice doesn't reign.